Saturday morning started like any other. I was in the garage, fixing up some old shelves while Melissa, my wife, was upstairs. We did not have any plans. No fancy dinners or hangouts with friends. Just one of those quiet weekends you sometimes look forward to after a long week. I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt. Too peaceful, maybe. Then it happened. The doorbell rang. And before I could even think of getting up, she rushed down the stairs. Her footsteps almost frantic. That was the first odd thing. She never hurried for anything like that. I stayed where I was, wiping the dust off my hands. But I could hear her muttering something under her breath as she opened the door. Package. Big enough to catch my curiosity. But it was not just the size. It was the look on her face when she picked it up. Her eyes widened. And she held it like it was something fragile. I did not ask about it right away. I did not want to seem too interested. I was not stupid either. There was something off about the whole thing. She did not bring it into the living room like I thought she would. Instead, she carried it upstairs to our bedroom, clutching it close to her chest like a lifeline. That's when I got this heavy feeling in my gut. I dropped what I was doing and followed her. Quietly, staying a few steps behind. When I reached the top of the stairs, the door to our bedroom was slightly ajar. I could see her, sitting on the edge of the bed, tearing into the box with shaking hands. And then I saw it. Inside the box, wrapped in white paper, were the ashes of her wedding dress. The one she wore 6 years ago. The one she told me was the most important piece of her life after our wedding. I froze, just standing there, watching her pull out the jar. Her fingers tracing the glass as if it held some kind of meaning only she understood. Why the hell would she do this? Why now? She had not mentioned anything about this. Had not asked if it was something we should do together. Had not even hinted at it. Her face softened as she stared at those ashes. And then, as if the moment could not get any weirder, she smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when you are sad or nostalgic. No, this was a smile that screamed relief. Like some weight had been lifted from her shoulders. I was not about to let this go. Melissa, I said, pushing the door open wide enough for her to notice me. She jumped, nearly knocking the jar off the bed. I stepped into the room, my voice low, trying to stay calm. What is that? Her eyes darted to the jar and back to me. As if she had not expected me to see. She hesitated for a second. Then quickly got up, pushing the jar behind her like it did not matter. Oh, nothing. Just an old keepsake. Her voice was casual to casual. I did not believe a damn word of it. A keepsake? You cremated your wedding dress? Without telling me. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms like I was the one overreacting. Why do you care? It's just a dress. It does not mean anything now. That hit me harder than I expected. Did not mean anything? That dress was the symbol of everything we'd been through. The beginning of U.S. Of our life together. And she just burned it like it was some piece of trash. I do not get it, Melissa. Why would you do this? I was searching her face for something. Anything that made sense. But she just stood there, her expression cold. Like she was done pretending. She shrugged, turning away from me. As if the conversation was already over. It was time to move on. Move on from what I wanted to scream. But something stopped me. There was a bigger picture here, something I was not seeing yet. Before I could ask any more questions, she grabbed her purse from the chair and headed for the door. I'm going out, she said over her shoulder without even looking back at me. I just stood there staring at that jar of ashes, feeling something crack inside me. The door slammed behind her, and the sound echoed through the house sharp and final. I stayed there, rooted to the spot, staring at the ashes like they held some secret answer. How had we gotten here? How had something that felt so solid, so permanent turned into this? I could still remember the day she wore that dress, her smile brighter than I'd ever seen. Her hand gripping mine so tight like she was afraid to let go. And now she just burns it, and walks out. Could not wrap my head around it. But the longer I stood there, the more something nodded at me. This was not just about the dress. This was not some spontaneous emotional decision. That smile she gave when she saw the ashes. It was not sadness. It was not regret. It was freedom. That S when it hit me. She was not just moving on from the dress. She was moving on from us. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through our messages, looking for anything that would make sense of this. And then I noticed it. Her text history had gone cold. The long conversations we used to have gone. Lately it was just, I'm working late, or I'll be home soon. No questions about my day, no jokes, nothing. But that was not the worst of it. What really set me off was the gap. 3 days ago, there was a 3-hour window where she had not responded to any of my texts. And not just a gap, but an entire thread had been deleted right in the middle of a conversation. I sat down hard on the bed, my mind racing. She'd never been this distant before. She'd been disengaged. Sure, but not like this. I remembered how she started disappearing more often over the past few months. She'd give me some excuse. Aaron's work dinners, the usual stuff. I believed her. Or maybe I had not wanted to see what was right in front of me. I ran my hand through my hair, feeling the frustration boil over. I needed answers. I checked her Instagram, her Facebook, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, almost without thinking, I opened her email. I had not looked at it in months. We did not snoop around each other's things because that's what trust was, right? Well, F***K trust. I was done playing by the rules when she was clearly breaking them. Her inbox was clean. But it was the sent folder that made my heart sink. A message she'd sent to some guy named Ryan just 2 days ago. The subject line "See not stop thinking about last night." I stared at those words, each one hitting like a punch to the gut. My head was spinning. I clicked on the email before I could stop myself. Ryan, I know we said we would not talk about it. But I see not stop thinking about how good it felt to finally be free. I have not felt that way in so long. And it scares me. But I also see not get enough of it. I do not know where this is going. But I know I'm not ready to walk away yet. Not from you. Could not breathe. My chest tightened as the reality of it all came crashing down. She was cheating on me. She'd been seeing someone else. Behind my back, sneaking around like our entire life together meant nothing. All those nights, I thought she was working late or with friends. She was with him. I wanted to throw the phone, smash it against the wall. Anything to make that message disappear. But it did not matter. I could not unsee it. I could not pretend this was not happening. My wife, the woman I'd built my life with, was screwing someone else and lying straight to my face about it. I stood up, pacing the room, the anger bubbling up, white hot. How long had she been seeing him? How long had I been the idiot sitting at home while she was off? Doing whatever with Ryan. I grabbed the jar of ashes, holding it in my hands, staring at it like it could give me the answers. She destroyed her wedding dress because she'd already moved on. She was not my wife anymore. She was not even pretending to be. I slammed the jar down on the dresser, my hands shaking. No, this was not going to end like this. I needed to confront her to see the look on her face when she realized I knew there was no way I was letting her walk away from this without an explanation. I was not just going to sit back and let her burn down our entire life without her telling me the truth. I picked up my keys and stormed out the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I did not know where she'd gone, but I was going to find her. And when I did, she was going to have to look me in the eyes and admit what she'd done. I drove like a man possessed, knuckles white against the steering wheel, my mind racing through 1,000 scenarios. My gut was screaming at me that this Ryan was not just some fling, felt bigger, more deliberate. And if Melissa thought she could slip away for a few hours and keep her little secret buried under work meetings and errands, she was dead wrong. Not this time. I was not even sure where to start looking. But something told me she was not far. She had been too calm when she left the house, almost like she expected me to stay behind and sulk in my confusion. But I was not about to play the fool anymore. I drove towards the place where she often ran errands. This little cafe we used to go to all the time, back when things were good. Lately, she had been mentioning it more, saying she liked to stop by there after work to relax. But I was not so sure about that anymore. There was something off about the way she said it, like she wanted me to hear her, but also did not. Like she was covering up something without really trying. And then like AF *** king punch to the gut. I saw her sitting in the corner booth by the window, sipping on her iced coffee, laughing. But she was not alone. Ryan, he was not hard to spot. The way she leaned towards him, that sly smile on her face. Like she was sharing some secret world with him that I was not a part of. Her hand grazed his wrist across the table. And I swear my vision went red. I felt like I'd been run over. But instead of being crushed, I was burning alive with rage. Without even thinking, I slammed the car door and stormed into the cafe. The bell above the door jingled. And both of them turned their heads. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Just for a split second. But then she covered it up, plastering on that fake calmness she always used when she thought she had control. "Jason," she said, way too casually. Like I'd just run into her at the grocery store. "What are you doing here?" I could feel the weight of every eye in the cafe on us. But I did not care. All I saw was her and him. "I could ask you the same thing," I said, voice tight with the effort. It took not to start yelling right then and there. I glanced at Ryan, who was sitting there frozen, his face a mixture of shock and guilt. "Who the hell is he, Melissa?" She blinked, and I saw the moment she decided to play dumb. "This is Ryan. He is a friend. We were just grabbing coffee." "A friend?" I practically spat the word. "So is this the friend you've been emailing? The one you see not stop thinking about?" Her face paled just for a moment before she recovered, folding her arms across her chest like she was the one who had been wrong. "You went through my emails? Seriously, Jason?" "That's when I snapped. Are you kidding me right now? You've been sneaking around with this guy, burning your wedding dress and lying to me for months. And you're upset that I read your emails." My voice was rising, and I knew I was causing a scene, but I did not care. I was done playing it cool. Her jaw clenched, and she finally dropped the pretense. The sweet, innocent wife act evaporated in an instant. Her eyes hardened, and she did not even bother looking at Ryan anymore. Like he was not even important. "Jason, what did you expect? Look at us. We have not been a couple for months. You just did not notice." That hit like a punch to the throat. I stood there stunned for a second. "What the hell are you talking about? We've been fine. Yeah, we had some rough patches, but that's marriage. You do not just go off and screw some guy because things get tough." Her lips curled into this bitter smirk. Like she had been waiting for this. "Tough? You do not even see it. Do you? You've been checked out for ages. You think just because you come home every night, everything is fine? It is not. You do not listen. You do not notice when I'm upset. You do not even ask how I'm doing anymore." I felt the blood drain from my face. But I was not about to let her turn this on me. "Do not you dare blame this on me. If you had a problem, you could have talked to me. But instead you're here doing what exactly? Playing house with him." Her eyes flicked to Ryan, who still had not said a damn word. And then back to me. "It is not that simple." "Oh, it is that simple," I snapped, taking a step closer, towering over her now. "You made it that simple the second you started sneaking behind my back. What were you waiting for the right moment to tell me? Or were you just going to disappear one day with a nice little see you never note?" Her face tightened. And for the first time, I saw a crack in her composure. "Jason, it is over. You need to accept that." "Over?" I laughed bitterly. "I did not even know we had a problem. You never gave me a chance to fix anything, Melissa. You just..." I gestured wildly between her and Ryan, my chest heaving with frustration. "You just decided this was the way to handle it." She stood there, silent, arms still crossed, like she'd already moved on in her mind. Maybe she had. Maybe she had moved on the second she sent that first email to Ryan, or the first time they met for coffee, or whatever the hell they were doing when I was not looking. Ryan finally cleared his throat, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I think maybe I should go. Melissa shot him a look sharp and quick, like she was daring him to abandon her now, but she did not say a word and neither did I. Ryan stood awkwardly pushing back his chair and slipped out the door, disappearing like the coward he was. Now it was just the two of us standing there in the middle of the cafe, surrounded by people who were pretending not to watch the silence between us stretched on, thick and suffocating. And then just like that, she turned on her heel and walked out without another word, without even looking back. I stood there, breathless, staring at the empty doorway. The cafe felt like it was spinning. I was left standing there, watching the door swing shut behind Melissa as if nothing had just happened. The noise of people whispering around me, the clinking of cups, it all felt distant. Like I was underwater, drowning in the mess she had just dumped on me. I had come here for answers, for some confrontation, but now I felt hollow. And she just walked away. Again, like I did not even deserve a final conversation. Like I was not worth her time. The irony of it hit me hard. She had been blaming me for not noticing her for being checked out. But she was the one who had been doing this whole thing in secret. She was the one who had checked out first. I was just the idiot who did not catch on soon enough. I turned and walked out of the cafe, trying to calm myself. But the anger, no, the betrayal was too raw. My thoughts were a chaotic mess, swirling with everything that had just happened. Everything I had just heard. I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking, trying to unlock the car door. When I finally got in, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, my breath coming in shallow, uneven gasps. It's over. The words Melissa had said kept bouncing around in my skull. Over. She had not even hesitated. Had she already made up her mind? Was this just her way of slowly breaking me down before pulling the final plug? The coldness in her eyes during that confrontation. It was not something new. She'd been done long before I even realized there was a problem. I slammed my fist against the dashboard. Hard. It did not make me feel better. But it was the only thing I could do to stop myself from screaming. Everything I thought I knew about us, about our life, had been a lie. Or maybe it was not a lie. But it had slowly unraveled while I was not paying attention. And she did not even care enough to tell me. I grabbed my phone, opening the email again, staring at those damn words from Ryan. I have not felt that way in so long. What was she talking about? What did he give her that I could not? When had I become so useless in her eyes that she needed someone else to fill the void? I started scrolling, looking for more messages between them. More proof. I needed to see the whole picture now. I could not sit in the dark any longer. And there it was. Another email from last week. Sent at midnight. Ryan. Tonight was everything I've been missing. I did not think I could feel this alive again. I'll see you tomorrow. Same place. Same time. Same place. Same time. So this was not a one-time thing. They had a routine. How long had this been going on? I felt sick to my stomach. Like I could actually throw up right there in the driver's seat. Every time she said she had to work late. I'm just meeting some friends for drinks. She had been with him. I'd been sitting at home waiting for her while she was sneaking around behind my back with this guy. This was not just an affair. This was King's second life she was leading. I could not sit still any longer. My body moved on autopilot. And before I knew it, I was driving. I did not even know where I was going at first. Just pressing my foot harder on the gas, trying to outrun the thoughts in my head. But the more I drove, the more the destination became clear. Home. Not our home, though. Not anymore. Just the place where all the lies had started. I had to get there before she did. I needed to pack my things or hers. I did not know yet. But I needed to make a decision before I did something stupid. My heart was racing. My mind spiraling. But the one thing I knew for sure was that I could not stay in this limbo. Not after today. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked different. It did not feel like mine anymore. It was just a shell. A place where I'd been too blind to see what was happening right in front of me. The memories inside. The laughter. The quiet nights. The promises we made. All felt tainted. It was not a home anymore. It was AF*** King Graveyard. I barged inside, heading straight for the bedroom. Her clothes were still hanging neatly in the closet. Our wedding photo was still framed on the nightstand. I stared at it for a moment, my hands shaking again. The way we looked that day, the way we smiled like we had the whole future ahead of us. It felt like a joke now. All of it. She had smiled the same way at Ryan. She had probably made the same promises to him. And then I saw it. The package with the ashes of her wedding dress was still sitting on the dresser. The lid slightly ajar. I could not help myself. I walked over and picked it up. Staring at the contents. My mind racing. Why had she done it? What had she thought while burning that dress? The dress that was supposed to symbolize our commitment. Did she feel guilty? Or was it her way of letting go of me? Bit by bit, before I even knew I was being left behind, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I realized she had not come home yet. But I knew it would not be long. And when she did, there would be no going back. I had to decide right now. Was I going to stay and fight for something that was already dead? Or was I going to leave before she could burn anything else in our life down to ashes? I put the jar back on the dresser, my heart pounding in my chest. And I sat down on the edge of the bed, waiting for her. Because when she walked through that door, there would be no more running. No more pretending. It was going to end tonight. One way or another, I sat there on the edge of the bed. The silence thick and suffocating. My hands gripping the edge of the mattress so hard, my knuckles turned white. Every second that passed felt like a countdown. Ticking down to something inevitable. I did not know what I was going to say when she walked through that door. But I knew I could not let her walk all over me again. Not this time. The jar with the ashes of her wedding dress sat on the dresser. A twisted reminder of how she had already burned our life down before I even had a chance to save it. The finality of that jar haunted me. She had not just betrayed me with some other guy. She'd been planning her escape for months. Bit by bit. While I was busy holding on to the ruins of what I thought was still a marriage. And then I heard it. The sound of her car pulling up into the driveway. My chest tightened. Every muscle in my body tensing as the familiar sound of her footsteps approached the front door. This was it. I was not ready, but it did not matter anymore. This was the moment I'd been building towards all day. The door opened. And there she was. Walking in with that same calm indifference she'd shown earlier at the cafe. She tossed her keys on the kitchen counter and looked up. Her eyes meeting mine as she stepped into the hallway. She did not even flinch. "Oh," she said, raising an eyebrow. "You re-home?" "Yeah," I replied. My voice low but steady. "I'm home. We need to talk." She sighed. Dropping her purse onto the floor like this was some inconvenience she had not planned for. "Jason, we already talked. I told you it's over. There's nothing else to say." I stood up, walking toward her slowly, each step deliberate. "No, you talked. You dropped a bomb and walked out. But we have not really talked. You owe me that much." She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "I do not owe you anything." I felt my temper flare. "You think that, huh? After 6 years, after everything we built, you think you can just walk out and act like none of it matters?" "Jason, stop being so dramatic," she snapped. "It's not like I have not been clear. We've been falling apart for months. You just did not notice." There it was again, that same accusation. Like it was my fault for being blind, for trusting her too much. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "Falling apart? You mean you've been falling apart? I did not know we had a problem because you never gave me a chance to fix it." Instead, you're off sneaking around with Ryan. How long has that been going on? She rolled her eyes, brushing past me like I was the one wasting her time. Ryan is not the point. This was going to happen whether or not he was in the picture. I grabbed her wrist, forcing her to face me. Not hard. Just enough to make her stop brushing me off. Yes, not the point. You were sleeping with another guy. Melissa, how is that not the point? She yanked her arm back, her face hardening into something cold. Almost unrecognizable. You think this is just about him? God, Jason, you do not get it. Ryan was a symptom, not the disease. I'd been done with this marriage long before he ever came along. You did not even notice I was slipping away. You did not care. My heart pounded in my chest. Anger mixing with disbelief. I did not care. Are you serious right now? I've been here. Day in and day out trying to make this work. But you're the one who checked out. You never told me you were unhappy. You never gave me a chance to fight for us. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed in the empty room. Fight for us? You have not been fighting for anything, Jason. You've been coasting. You come home, you sit on the couch, and you act like everything's fine while I'm drowning. But you would not even notice because you've been too focused on your own damn world. Her words cut deep, but I was not going to let her twist this around. Not anymore. You could have said something. I growled, stepping closer. My voice shaking with the weight of everything I'd held in. You could have told me you were unhappy. You could have given me a chance to fix it. But instead, you burned your wedding dress, deleted texts, and lied to my face. You chose to betray me instead of talking to me. She shook her head, her expression almost pitying now. I did not choose to betray you, Jason. I chose to save myself. You just were not listening. I could not believe what I was hearing. She had rewritten the entire story in her head, turned herself into the victim while I was left standing there with the ashes of our life in my hands. It was like she had convinced herself that she was doing the right thing, and nothing I could say would break through that delusion. I stared at her for a long moment, the words swirling in my head, but none of them seemed to matter anymore. This was not going to end with some heartfelt conversation. She had made up her mind long before today. I was just the last person to realize it. Fine. I said, my voice raw, the finality of it hitting me all at once. If that's what you want, Melissa, if you think this is saving yourself, then go, but do not act like you did not destroy us in the process. She blinked, her cold facade flickering just for a moment. Like she had not expected me to say it out loud. I could see her brain working, trying to decide if she should respond. If there was anything left to say, but she just nodded, stepping back toward the door, like she had somewhere else to be. I'm leaving, she said quietly, almost like it was an afterthought. I watched as she grabbed her purse from the floor, her back to me now. And for the first time, I did not try to stop her. I did not beg. I did not yell. I did not ask for another chance. I just stood there letting her go because deep down, I knew that's what she wanted all along. Without a glance back, she walked out the door, closing it softly behind her, and the house fell into an eerie silence. No slamming doors, no final dramatic exit, just the quiet, heavy thud of her walking out of my life. And just like that, it was over. The silence after she left was deafening. I stood there, staring at the door as if any second it would swing open and she'd walk back in. Tell me it was all a joke or a bad dream, but that door did not move. Melissa was gone, gone in the way people leave when they're never coming back. I felt the weight of it settling in, the finality hitting me like a punch to the gut. For a long time, I did not move. I just stood there. The air in the room heavy with everything left unsaid. My eyes fell on the jar of ashes again. Still sitting on the dresser like some twisted reminder of what was gone. That jar felt like a taunt now. Melissa had destroyed the symbol of our commitment. And in a way, she had prepared for this moment long before I did. She had reduced the past to ashes and moved on. While I was still clinging to the pieces, hoping to glue them back together. She had already scattered them in the wind. My legs finally gave out, and I collapsed onto the bed, the same bed we'd shared for years. Every inch of the room felt different now. The photos on the walls, the books on the nightstand, even the smell of her perfume that still lingered. It all felt like a lie, like I'd been living in some parallel version of my own life, blind to the truth that had been unraveling beneath my nose. And then it hit me. She had not just left me. She had erased us. She had destroyed every shred of what we used to be step by step without even looking back. It was not just the dress. It was not just the cheating. It was the way she had rewritten the story in her head. Made herself the victim, convinced herself that she'd been the one trapped. She'd been done with me long before today. And I had been too stupid to see it. I grabbed the wedding photo from the nightstand, staring at the two people smiling in it. Two people who looked like they had everything figured out. I ran my thumb over her face, feeling this bitter knot form in my chest. She had looked at me that day like I was her whole world. And now she looked at me like I was an obstacle. An inconvenience. I did not want to feel sorry for myself. I did not want to be the guy who wallowed in his own misery. But how could I not? She had taken every good thing we had and destroyed it without even giving me a chance to fight for it. I tossed the photo onto the bed and stood up, pacing the room. I needed to do something, anything to keep myself from spiraling. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. And every part of the house screamed her. Her shoes by the door, her clothes in the closet, even her coffee mug still sitting in the sink. I could not escape it. I stormed into the closet and started pulling down her clothes, yanking them off the hangers with a fury I did not know I had. Her dresses, her blouses, the stupid scarf she always wore in the fall. It all had to go. I could not stand the sight of it anymore. I did not want to see anything that reminded me of her, of the life we'd built, of the person I thought she was. Within minutes, the floor was covered in her things. I stood there, breathing hard, staring down at the pile like it was some monster I had to slay. But even then, it did not feel like enough. It was not just her clothes. It was the memories, the little things, the way she used to curl up on the couch with a blanket and pretend she was not cold, the way she used to sneak up behind me in the kitchen and wrap her arms around my waist, just because I wanted to burn it all. And that's when I noticed the jar of ashes again, sitting there quietly on the dresser, like it was mocking me. She had burned the wedding dress, our wedding dress, and left me with the remains. I could not help but laugh bitterly at the thought, how fitting. She had reduced our life to ashes, and here I was, left to clean up the mess. I grabbed the jar, feeling the cool glass in my hands. I was not sure what I was going to do with it, but I knew I could not keep it here. It was like holding on to a piece of the past that was already dead. I stormed downstairs, the jar still clutched in my hand, and threw open the front door. The cool evening air hit me, but it did nothing to cool the anger bubbling up inside. For a moment, I just stood there on the porch, looking out at the quiet street. Everything seemed so normal. The neighbors' lights were on, cars parked in their driveways, people probably settling in for dinner or watching TV, completely unaware that my entire world had just collapsed. I stared down at the jar, and a dark thought crept into my mind. I could smash it right here. I could throw it against the pavement, watch the glass shatter, watch the ashes scatter like the promises we made. I could destroy the last piece of her that had any meaning, the same way she had destroyed me. But something stopped me. Smashing the jar would not bring me peace. It would not undo the damage. It would not give me back the 6 years I'd spent building a life with her. It would just be another pile of broken pieces, another thing to clean up. And I was tired of cleaning up her messes. I set the jar down on the porch railing, staring at it for a long moment. My hands were shaking, but my mind was strangely calm. I was not going to let her ruin me. She had already taken enough. My life, my heart. It all felt like it had been ripped apart, but I was still standing. And that had to mean something. I turned back toward the house, stepping inside. The mess was still there, the clothes, the photos, the memories. But I realized in that moment that I did not need to burn it all down. I did not need to erase every trace of her to move on. I just needed to start again, piece by piece, even if it felt impossible right now. Because no matter what she had done, I was still here. And I was not going to let her betrayal define me. I woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through the windows. But it did not bring the warmth or peace that mornings usually did. It just highlighted the emptiness. Melissa's side of the bed was untouched. Cold. I had not slept much, barely closing my eyes for more than a few minutes at a time. My mind kept replaying every moment from the day before. The confrontation, the lies, the way she walked out without a single glance back. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, wondering what I was supposed to do next. There was no guidebook for this. No checklist for what to do when your wife burns her wedding dress, cheats on you, and leaves. The house felt different now, quieter than it had ever been. Maybe because I knew that quiet was not temporary. This was not just another argument, something we patch up and move on from. She was really gone. And for the first time, I had to face the reality that my life was not going to go back to the way it was. Eventually, I forced myself out of bed. The mess from the night before was still there. The pile of her clothes on the floor, the wedding photo I had tossed onto the bed. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. But I was not ready to deal with it yet. Not all of it, at least. I walked into the kitchen, opening the fridge out of habit. But the sight of her favorite yogurt on the top shelf made me slam it shut again. I could not do this. Not yet. I could not face the little reminders of her sprinkled all over the house. Every corner of this place felt like her. Every inch of it was soaked with memories. Memories that now felt tainted. Spoiled by the truth I'd uncovered. Instead, I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I needed to talk to someone. I needed to get this out of my head before it ate me alive. My thumb hovered over my best friend's name, Derek. We had not talked in a while. I guess I'd pulled away over the past few months. More caught up in my own world than I'd realized. I'd been so focused on trying to fix my marriage that I had not even thought about leaning on anyone else. I hesitated, but then I pressed the call button. It rang twice before Derek picked up, his voice groggy. "Hey man, what's up? You okay?" The question hit me hard. Was I okay? No, absolutely not. But I did not know how to say that. I stood there for a moment. The words stuck in my throat. Finally, I managed to get something out. "Derek, man, I need to talk. It's Melissa. She's gone." There was a pause on the other end. Gone? What do you mean, gone? I sighed, running my hand through my hair, feeling the weight of everything I had to explain. She's been cheating on me with some guy named Ryan. I found out yesterday. She left. It's over. The line went quiet for a moment. And then Derek cursed under his breath. Jesus, man, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Are you? Do you need me to come over? I almost said yes. I almost asked him to come by to sit with me to help me process this mess. But instead I shook my head, even though he could not see me. No, I mean, thanks, but I just needed to talk. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do now. Listen, Derek said, his voice steady, like he was trying to pull me out of the fog. You do not have to do anything right now. You do not need to have it all figured out. Just take it one step at a time. You're going through hell, man. Anyone would be, but you're not alone in this. I swallowed hard, the knot in my throat tightening. Yeah, I know. It's just, everything feels like it's falling apart. I do not even know where to start. You start by breathing, he said, with the kind of calm that only someone on the outside of the storm could have. Then you figure it out piece by piece. She might have left, but you're still here, and you're stronger than you think. You do not have to do this alone. I nodded again, feeling some of the tension ease out of my chest. Talking to Derek did not fix anything. But it made me feel less like I was drowning. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I needed to hear that anytime, he said. You know where to find me. And if you need to crash at my place, just say the word. Do not hesitate. I hung up after that, feeling a little more steady, but still weighed down by everything that had happened. Derek was right. I did not have to fix everything right now, but I had to start somewhere. I had to pick up the pieces of my life, even if it felt impossible. I stood in the kitchen for a while, just staring out the window, thinking about what my next move was. I knew I could not stay in this house much longer, not like this. Everywhere I looked, there were too many reminders of what I had lost. I needed to clear my head to put some space between me and all of this. My phone buzzed in my hand, and I glanced down at it, half expecting another message from Melissa or maybe from Ryan, some cruel twist of fate, but it was not either of them. It was an email from my lawyer. I had not even realized I was still holding on to the idea of reconciliation until I saw that email sitting there staring back at me like a slap in the face. Melissa must have already filed for divorce. That's what this was, right? Another step in her plan to erase me from her life, just like she had erased the wedding dress, the promises, the memories. I opened the email, my heart pounding, bracing myself for what it would say, but it was not a divorce filing. It was a formal notice about the separation, a reminder that I would need to start the process of dividing assets, filing papers, making everything official. It was the beginning of the end, and it was not just about Melissa anymore. It was about me, about moving forward, about making decisions for myself, not for her, not for us, because there was no us anymore. I leaned back against the counter, staring at the screen. The silence of the house closed in around me, but this time it did not feel as suffocating, felt open, like there was space to breathe again, to think, maybe Derek was right, maybe I did not have to figure it all out right now. But this email, it was a reminder that I had to start somewhere. I closed the phone and looked around the kitchen again. I could still see pieces of her everywhere, but they did not feel as heavy as they did yesterday. I was not sure what my next move was, but for the first time I was not afraid to make one. I was not going to let this destroy me, not anymore, and whatever came next, it was going to be on my terms. The days that followed felt surreal, like I was walking through a fog I could not escape from. Every morning I woke up expecting to see her, half convinced that maybe, somehow this had all been a nightmare. But when I rolled over to that empty side of the bed, reality hit me like a freight train. She was not coming back. I had spent the last 6 years building a life with Melissa, and now I was forced to tear it all down, brick by brick. It was like dismantling a house you'd spent years perfecting, knowing there was no salvaging it. Only rubble left behind, but somewhere in that mess, something shifted in me. I could not explain it, but the more I faced the silence, the more I started to realize that Melissa had already been gone for a long time. The woman I had loved, the woman I married, she was not the same person anymore. She had not been for months, maybe even longer. And I had been holding on to the version of her that no longer existed. The next weekend, I woke up with a sense of clarity that I had not felt in weeks. It was not a huge epiphany or some big emotional moment. It was quieter than that, more subtle. But it was enough to get me out of bed, enough to start moving forward. I found myself back in the bedroom, standing in front of the pile of clothes I'd ripped off the hangers in anger. They still lay scattered across the floor like a battlefield of broken memories. But instead of feeling the weight of it, I saw them for what they were now, just things. Just pieces of fabric that no longer held the meaning they once did. I took a deep breath and started packing her things into boxes. Her dresses, her scarves, the shoes she always loved. All of it went into the boxes without hesitation this time. There was no more fury in my hands, no more shaking. It was just something I had to do, something I needed to do for myself. As I packed, I noticed the framed wedding photo still sitting on the bed, the one I had tossed aside in my anger. I picked it up and looked at it again. But this time, it did not sting the way it had before. The smiles in that picture were real ones. I knew that. We had been happy. But that version of us was gone now. And I could not keep living in the past, holding on to what could have been. I opened the back of the frame and slid the photo out, folding it neatly before tucking it into one of the boxes with the rest of her things. It did not hurt as much as I expected. It felt like closure. Like I was finally saying goodbye to the life I had thought we'd have. When I finished packing, I stood in the middle of the room and let out a breath I did not know I'd been holding. The room felt different now, emptier, yes, but also lighter. There was space again, not just in the room, but in me. I did not know what came next. But I knew that this was the first step. I was no longer clinging to the pieces of a broken life. I was letting go. Later that day, I called a moving service and arranged for the boxes to be taken to her new place. I did not need to see her again. I did not need another confrontation. It was not about her anymore. This was about me reclaiming my life one box at a time. As I waited for the movers to arrive, I sat on the porch, staring at the jar of ashes I had left on the railing the night before. It felt like it held more weight than just her wedding dress. It was the ashes of everything we had been, everything I had lost. But I realized now that I did not need to hold on to it anymore. I picked up the jar, turning it over in my hands one last time. And then, without hesitation, I carried it down the porch steps and into the backyard. There was an old oak tree at the edge of the yard, a place where we used to sit together on lazy afternoons, felt fitting somehow, like the right place to leave this part of my life behind. I unscrewed the lid and watched as the ashes slowly drifted out, carried by the breeze into the grass beneath the tree. I stood there for a long time, watching the last remnants of her dress, of our marriage, scatter into the wind. And when it was done, I felt something I had not felt in weeks: relief. It was not the overwhelming kind of relief, the kind that fixes everything in an instant. It was softer, quieter, like a weight had been lifted just enough to breathe again. I walked back into the house and stood in the living room, looking around. The place still felt strange, unfamiliar without her presence. But I also knew that this was my home now, my space to fill with whatever came next. Later that evening, I sat on the couch, looking through the phone, and hovered over a few of my old contacts. People I had not reached out to in ages. Friends, family members, people I had drifted away from while I'd been consumed by my relationship with Melissa. I sent a few texts, simple ones, reaching out to reconnect. No heavy conversations, no long explanations, just a start. I did not want to be alone in this. And I realized I did not have to be. As the night wore on, I felt something I had not expected. Hope, not a grand, sweeping kind of hope, but a small spark. The kind that comes when you know you've survived the worst, and you're still standing. I was not fixed, not by a long shot, but I was starting to heal. I grabbed the remote and flipped through channels aimlessly, not really paying attention to the TV. My phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen, a text from Derek. "You doing all right, man?" I stared at the message for a moment before typing back. "Yeah, I think I will be." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I actually believed it. I leaned back on the couch, closed my eyes, and let the quiet settle around me. This time, the silence did not feel empty, felt like the beginning of something new. And that was enough. For now, a week had passed since I scattered the ashes of Melissa's wedding dress under the oak tree. The days after felt strangely different, like I was living in a world I did not recognize. But that was okay. I was learning to be okay with it. There was a kind of freedom in the quiet. One I had not expected and certainly had not asked for, but there it was. It felt like stepping out into the open after being locked inside for too long. The house was still half empty, but it no longer felt like a hollow shell. I had started to reclaim it. I moved furniture around, threw out things that had been there for too long, rearranged the space to feel more like mine. I bought new bedsheets, something in a color Melissa would have hated. Felt good. Small changes, maybe, but they were mine. I found myself thinking about the future. About what life looked like now that I was on my own. At first, the idea terrified me, the thought of rebuilding everything from scratch. But now that same thought excited me. The weight of trying to keep a broken marriage together had been crushing me for longer than I wanted to admit. Without it, I was lighter, free to figure out what I wanted. For the first time in years. That Friday, I decided to do something I had not done in a long time. I went out, alone, not to drink away my problems or escape my thoughts, but to just live. To remind myself that life was still moving and I could move with it. I drove downtown to a bar I used to love before things with Melissa got complicated. It was not one of those trendy, loud places. It was a small, quiet pub tucked into a corner of the city. Low lights, soft music, the kind of place where people kept to themselves unless you wanted company. As I sat at the bar nursing a beer, I realized how long it had been since I'd done something for myself. I did not have to check my phone, did not have to think about whether Melissa was wondering where I was, or whether I was making her happy enough. There was no one to please, no expectations. Just me, the music, and the sound of low conversations drifting around the room. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at peace. I looked around the bar, taking in the scene. A group of friends was laughing at a table near the back. A couple sat at the booth by the window, talking quietly. And then there was me, alone, but not lonely. I liked it. I liked the idea that I could just exist here without the weight of someone else's judgment hanging over me. I was halfway through my second drink when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to see a woman standing there, smiling softly. She looked about my age, maybe a little younger, with dark hair and warm eyes that seemed to catch the low light of the bar. "Mind if I sit?" she asked, gesturing to the empty stool next to me. I nodded, surprised, but not uncomfortable. "Sure, go ahead." She sat down, ordering a drink from the bartender, and then turned to me. "You look like you read deep in thought. Hope I'm not interrupting anything." I laughed, shaking my head. "No, not at all. Just thinking about life, I guess." "Life's a lot to think about," she said with a grin, raising her glass. "Here's to figuring it out." I clinked my glass against hers, smiling for what felt like the first time in a long time. We started talking, nothing heavy, just the kind of light conversation that felt easy. Her name was Samantha, and she was there by herself too, just enjoying the night. We talked about work, the city, the best places to grab pizza at 2 a.m. She had this laid-back energy, the kind of presence that did not demand anything from me. It was refreshing. After a while, she glanced at my wedding ring. It was still there, even though Melissa had been gone for a while now. I had not thought to take it off. It had just become part of me like an old habit. "You married?" she asked, her tone casual, but curious. I hesitated, feeling the weight of the question. But I did not feel the need to hide anything, not anymore. I was. "It ended recently?" She nodded, not pressing for details, just accepting it. "I get it, it's tough. But I've learned that sometimes, endings are not as bad as we think. Sometimes they read just the beginning of something else." Her words hung in the air, and I realized how true they were. Melissa walking out had felt like the end of everything. But maybe it was just the end of that chapter. The pain, the betrayal, it was real. But so was this. So was the feeling of sitting here, talking to someone new, seeing the world through different eyes. We talked for hours, the conversation easy, no expectations. She was not Melissa. She was not a replacement. She was just someone who reminded me that there was more out there. More to life, more to me, more to discover. At the end of the night, we parted ways. She smiled, slipping a piece of paper into my hand with her number on it. "Call me sometime," she said, her voice soft, but sure. I did not know if I would. But that was not the point. The point was that I could. I had options. I had a future. And for the first time in a long time, I was not afraid of it. I drove home that night feeling lighter than I had in months. The house was still quiet when I walked in. But it was not the kind of silence that suffocated me anymore. It was the kind that let me breathe. I stood in the middle of the living room, looking around at the space that had once felt so full of memories, both good and bad. Now it was just a blank canvas, waiting for me to decide what came next. I was not the same person I had been when Melissa left. I was not the man clinging to the ashes of a failed marriage, trying to make sense of the betrayal. I was someone else now, someone rebuilding piece by piece, day by day. Someone figuring out what it meant to be on my own, and maybe even learning to like it. As I lay in bed that night, I realized something. The pain was still there, and it probably would be for a while. But it did not own me anymore. It did not define me. I closed my eyes, letting the quiet of the night settle around me. And for the first time, I did not feel the need to fill it with anything. I just let it be. And for now, that was enough.